I thought I understood what petty meant until my HOA turned my driveway into their personal snow dumping ground, and then told me I should be thankful for it. Picture this. You're a widower still mourning the wife cancer stole from you last winter. You wake up to an 8-foot wall of filthy, chemical-soaked snow, completely sealing your garage shut, trapping your 78-year-old mother-in-law inside with her heart medication running dangerously low. But here's what shattered me. That toxic slush was slowly killing the Memorial Rose Garden. My Sarah spent her last 5 years nurturing it, and every grain of road salt was eating through the final beautiful things she left behind. When I called to complain, they fined me $500 for unsightly accumulation. Diesel fumes hung heavy in the cold morning air as I stood there, work boots crunching on ice, watching neighbors glide past in spotless BMWs like I didn't exist. What would you do if they destroyed your wife's legacy, then billed you for funeral? Drop your HOA nightmare below, because what I did next stranded 47 families and landed us on the evening news. My name is Wade Garrison, 52 years old, retired from City Public Works after 30 years of fixing everyone else's infrastructure problems. Never imagined I'd need those same skills to defend myself against my own neighbors. Sarah and I bought our corner house in Meadowview Estates back in '98. It looked like the American dream. Gated community, private streets, property values that only climbed higher. The gate made us feel protected. Turns out it just locked us in with the insane. After Sarah passed last February, her mother, Grace, moved in with me. 78, heart condition, needs her prescriptions delivered daily. Gentle soul, who spent 4 decades teaching kindergarten. The type of neighbor who bakes cookies for the mail carrier. Then Charlene Westbrook arrived. Real estate agent, drives a white Tesla. She keeps spotless. She moved here 3 years ago from some downtown condo. First week, she knocked on my door holding a clipboard and wearing that smile that never touches her eyes. Mr. Garrison, I'm Charlene, your new HOA board president. I couldn't help but notice your truck. She gestured at my 10-year-old Ford pickup like it was contagious. Our community standards require vehicles to enhance property values. Perhaps you could park it somewhere less visible. I was still drowning in grief. Sarah had just died. I didn't have any fight left. It's my driveway, ma'am. Well, yes, technically, but we're all in this together, aren't we? That phrase became her favorite weapon. We're all in this together, except some of us were apparently more together than others. December rolled in with the first real blizzard in years. 18 inches overnight, the kind of storm that shuts down an entire city. I woke to the scraping roar of snowplows, metal grinding echoing between houses. But something felt wrong. The scraping wasn't moving along the street like normal. It was getting louder, closer, focused directly on my corner lot. I looked out the kitchen window and watched 3 dump trucks backing up to my property line. Not the street. My property. My driveway. The easement strip along my fence where Sarah used to grow her prize roses. The driver of the lead truck climbed out, bundled in an orange reflective vest. He walked over to a woman in a white parka and designer snow boots. Even from 50 yards away, I recognized that perfect blonde hair. Charlene. She pointed straight at my memorial garden, the spot where Sarah's roses were sleeping under the snow. The driver nodded and climbed back into his truck. What happened next is burned into my memory. 3 trucks working together dumped every ounce of snow from our private streets directly onto my property. Mountain after mountain of white mixed with sand, salt, and whatever else came from their commercial contracts. The chemical sting of road salt filled the air, blending with diesel exhaust. By the time they finished, a 12-foot wall of snow blocked my garage, my living room window, and buried Sarah's garden beneath a toxic mass that would kill anything trying to grow there. Grace appeared beside me at the window, her worried voice barely a whisper. Wait, how are we going to get out? My doctor's appointment is this afternoon. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just snow dumping. This was imprisonment. They had trapped us inside our own home while keeping their precious streets spotless. I threw on my coat and boots and crunched through the snow to confront the crew, but they were already gone. Just me standing in my buried driveway, staring at what used to be my wife's final gift to the world. The muffled silence of fresh snow was broken only by Grace tapping on the window, holding her empty pill bottle against the glass. That's when I realized this wasn't about snow anymore. 24 hours later, the mail brought a Christmas present from my friendly neighborhood HOA. Notice of violation stamped in red across official letterhead. $500 fine for unsightly snow accumulation and failure to maintain driveway access standards. The exact snow they dumped on my property was somehow now my responsibility to remove. Grace's medication situation was becoming critical. Her delivery service couldn't navigate the frozen maze blocking our driveway. I called around. Private snow removal companies wanted $800 cash up front. That's a big hit on a fixed pension. But watching Grace worry about her heart medication made the decision easy. While I waited for the crew, I studied that violation notice. Something felt off about the signature at the bottom. I'd seen my own handwriting enough times to recognize it. And whatever was scribbled under homeowner agreement acknowledgement wasn't mine. The emergency board meeting was scheduled Thursday night in Charlene's living room. I showed up with my snow removal receipt and a simple request. Reimburse me for cleaning up their mess. Charlene's house smelled like expensive perfume mixed with stale coffee. For board members sat around her marble dining table like they were running a Fortune 500 company instead of arguing over snow piles. Mr. Garrison, Charlene began without looking up from her leather portfolio, we've reviewed your request, and I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. She slid a document across the table. Community maintenance agreement signed by all residents upon purchase. Section 12 clearly stated homeowners agreed to accept snow removal from shared community areas as needed. I picked up the paper. My address was there, my name typed neatly at the top, and at the bottom, a signature that looked nothing like mine. The W in Wade was wrong. I always loop it. This one was sharp and angular. The G in Garrison was missing the tail I've used for 30 years. That's not my signature. I said loud enough for the entire table to hear. Charlene's smile never moved. Are you calling us liars, Mr. Garrison? I'm calling that document fraud. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Board member Tom Henderson cleared his throat. Now, wait just a minute. Board meeting adjourned, Charlene announced, snapping her portfolio shut. But here's what I remembered from my public works career. When dealing with bureaucrats, always follow the paper trail. After 3 decades in municipal government, I knew every legitimate document has backups, filing dates, witness signatures. This so-called agreement had none. The next morning I went to the county courthouse and dug through HOA filing records. Sure enough, no such agreement had ever been filed. According to official records, the only snow removal provision in our original HOA charter required professional removal to appropriate off-site disposal areas. Off-site, not on Wade Garrison's property. But Charlene's power move was only beginning. 2 days later, Grace fell carrying groceries through the remaining snow maze. Bruised ribs, nothing broken, but at 78 every fall is dangerous. Paramedics had to carry her out on a stretcher because the ambulance couldn't reach the house. As they loaded her into the ambulance, I noticed something that made my blood boil. 3 houses down, Charlene's driveway was pristine black asphalt. Not a single snowflake anywhere. Apparently, the community maintenance program was very selective about which community members received service. That night, I sat in Grace's hospital room, holding her hand while she slept off pain medication. The smell of antiseptic and anxiety filled the air as I made a decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and called Jerry Patterson, an attorney friend from my union days. Jerry helped with my pension paperwork when I retired, and more importantly, he had a reputation for not backing down from bullies. Jerry, I need to understand something about property rights and trespassing law. What kind of trespassing, Wade? The kind where neighbors dump tons of trash on your land and threaten you when you complain. Jerry went quiet for a moment. Wade, you know, dumping anything on private property without permission is criminal trespass, regardless of what any HOA agreement says. Even if I had signed that document. Even then, they can't override state law. That's when I learned my first important lesson. HOA agreements cannot supersede criminal law. Period. Translation. If they're dumping on your property without permission, they're committing crimes, not enforcing rules. Grace squeezed my hand in her sleep, and I squeezed back. This wasn't over. Not even close. The next storm hit in January, and Charlene decided to escalate. This time, they didn't just dump street snow. 3 trucks arrived carrying loads from their shopping center contracts. Sand, salt, chemical de-icers, plus whatever trash got mixed in from parking lots. The pile grew 12 feet high again, completely blocking our driveway and living room window. Grace couldn't even see outside anymore. Our home went from cozy retirement cottage to frozen prison in about 2 hours. But the real problem hit when our heating oil delivery truck couldn't reach us. Our tank was nearly empty, and with outside temperatures dropping to 15 below, the house started feeling like a refrigerator. Grace's arthritis was flaring, and keeping the indoor temperature at 55 degrees wasn't helping her recover from the fall. I called Jerry again. They've escalated. This isn't harassment anymore. They're creating dangerous conditions for an elderly resident. Wade, we need documentation. Photos, temperature readings, anything showing they're endangering Grace's health. And I want to schedule an emergency board meeting. Already tried. Charlene scheduled it Saturday. No problem. My daughter's flying in from California that day. First visit since the funeral. Only time she could get off work. Jerry paused. That's not coincidence, Wade. She's trying to isolate you, make you choose between family and fighting back. He was right, but I wasn't missing seeing Lisa. First time in 8 months, and she was bringing the grandkids. Grace needed to see them, especially after her accident. Saturday came, and I walked into that board meeting alone. 47 residents packed Charlene's living room, tension thick as winter air, some faces sympathetic, others openly hostile. Charlene had prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled Property Value Threats in Our Community. I'm not kidding. She actually used Comic Sans font, which told me everything about her attention to detail. Slide 3 feature photo of my house labeled maintenance concerns right next to pictures of cracked sidewalks and dead trees. Like my 30-year-old home was somehow dragging down property values just by existing. As you can see, Charlene explained, clicking through images of various undesirable elements. Certain properties require additional community support to maintain our standards. Additional support. That's what she called dumping toxic snow on my memorial garden. But the room wasn't buying it. I saw head shaking, people whispering. Margaret Presley raised her hand. Charlene, why is all the snow being dumped on one property? Shouldn't the burden be shared? Charlene's smile tightened. The Garrison property is most suitable for temporary storage due to its corner location and available space. Available space? That was Frank Rodriguez, whose backyard touched mine. Wade's got the same size lot as everyone else. Which brings us to our solution, Charlene announced, clicking to the final slide. Motion to continue snow placement for community efficiency. All in favor? For hands went up. Only Tom Henderson abstained, looking uncomfortable. Motion carries. Mr. Garrison, we appreciate your continued cooperation. Cooperation. That's what she called burying my house in toxic waste. But walking home that night, I realized something important. The room wasn't united behind her. People were questioning things. Margaret and Frank weren't buying her narrative. Even Tom looked doubtful. I spent the next week researching, and that's when I discovered something that changed everything. Spring soil testing from Grace's attempted garden showed salt levels 20 times higher than normal. But it wasn't just regular road salt. The lab identified sodium chloride mixed with magnesium chloride and calcium chloride, commercial de-icing compounds not meant for residential areas. This stuff was designed for highways and airport runways, not neighborhood streets. Jerry reviewed the lab results and whistled. Wade, this is environmental contamination. Those chemicals will kill anything trying to grow there for years. And some of these compounds are restricted for residential use. That's when I learned my second important lesson. Not all de-icing chemicals are created equal, and some are legal for residential dumping. Translation: check what chemicals are being used in your community. You might be getting poison along with your plants. The funny part? Charlene's PowerPoint included a stock photo labeled Ideal Community Resident. Blonde hair, perfect smile, standing next to a luxury car. Looked suspiciously like her real estate headshot from 2019. But the joke was about to be on her, because I was done being the neighborhood doormat. Lisa and the kids had left that morning, and Grace was feeling stronger. Time to take the gloves off. February brought Charlene's boldest move yet, a formal proposal to make my suffering permanent. The letter arrived on HOA letterhead, professional and polished. Snow Depot lease agreement offering me $50 per year to use the corner of my lot as the community's official dumping site for all seasonal maintenance materials. $50 to destroy my property value and Grace's quality of life. The contract terms made my blood pressure spike. Year-round dumping rights for a 20 by 30-foot area. Seasonal materials including sand, salt, debris, and whatever else they felt like storing. The dead zone would be permanent. Nothing would grow there for decades. Grace read over my shoulder as I studied it. Wade. That's right where I was planning my physical therapy garden. The doctor said working with plants would help my arthritis. She was right. Losing that space meant losing the one thing keeping her mobile and motivated. And having a permanent industrial dump in my front yard would destroy my property value. Who would ever buy a house next to a chemical waste pile? But I was done reacting. Time to start investigating. County courthouse records became my second office. 30 years in public works teaches you paper trails tell the truth when people lie. I pulled every document related to our subdivision. Original plat maps, easement agreements, utility rights, everything. Most of it was routine. But buried in the 1987 original subdivision, plat was a detail that made me sit up straight. My corner lot didn't just have a house sitting on it. It controlled something far more valuable. The exclusive access easement to every private street in Meadowview Estates. I called my surveyor friend Mike Torres to double-check what I thought I was seeing. Mike's been mapping property boundaries for 25 years. When he showed up with his equipment, what he told me sounded like pure music. Wade, this is incredible. Your property includes the only legal access point to all 47 homes in this community. See this boundary line? He tapped the survey map with his pencil. Everything beyond this is private roadway owned by the HOA. But to reach those roads, every single resident has to cross your land. What does that mean legally? It means you're not just a homeowner, buddy, you're the gatekeeper. Mike broke easement law down into terms I could actually follow. An easement gives usage rights, not ownership. The agreement requires good faith from both sides. Violation of the terms allows immediate revocation. But then he added the part that really mattered. And here's the kicker. Mike continued while measuring the boundary line precisely. This easement was granted with a specific condition, neighborly cooperation. Your HOA charter requires residents to treat each other with respect and consideration. Systematically dumping toxic waste on your property? That doesn't sound very neighborly. That evening, I sat in Grace's favorite chair staring out at the snow mountain blocking our view, holding one of Sarah's dried roses. The salt had turned it black, just like everything else they'd touched. She always said bullies depend on decent people staying quiet. I murmured into the empty room. Not this time, sweetheart. I started making calls. First to Jared Patterson, who confirmed exactly what Mike had discovered. The 1987 easement agreement included a good faith clause the HOA had repeatedly violated. Wade, this changes everything, Jerry said. They broke the contract first. You have ground to revoke access completely. What happens if I do that? 47 families become landlocked. Their private streets turn into extremely expensive driveways to nowhere. My third important lesson came from Jerry. Access easements can be conditional and revocable. Property owners are not required to provide access to people who abuse the privilege. Translation: treat your neighbors like garbage. Lose your right to cross their land. But I wasn't ready to drop the hammer yet. I needed proof, documentation, and a strategy that would force them to fix the damage they caused. The next week, I called equipment rental companies and researched property line marking requirements. Steel posts and heavy chains for property improvements. security cameras for home protection, an excavator with a snow blade attachment for seasonal maintenance. All perfectly legal property owner activities. The plan forming in my head was elegant in its simplicity. They wanted to use my property as their dumping ground. Fine, but they'd overlooked one critical detail. I controlled their only way home. Charlene's lease agreement still sat on my kitchen table waiting for a signature. I picked up a pen and wrote across the bottom in red ink. Counteroffer. Remove all illegally dumped materials and pay $22,400 in damages. Then we can discuss neighborly cooperation. Grace glanced over from her crossword puzzle. Think that'll get their attention? Oh, I'm just getting started, Grace. Just getting started. The portable lights arrived that afternoon, followed by the security cameras. Time to document whatever they did next, because I had a strong feeling Charlene wouldn't accept my counteroffer quietly. Late Tuesday night, alone in my kitchen with county records spread across the table, I finally understood the full scope of what I was dealing with and what I was capable of doing about it. The original 1987 subdivision plat told a story Charlene clearly never bothered to read. When Meadowview Estates was developed, the city required all internal roads to be private streets owned and maintained by the HOA. But those private streets needed legal access to the public road system. That access runs directly through my corner lot, not beside it, through it. Every resident, every delivery driver, every emergency vehicle, all of them had to cross my land to reach their homes. Without my easement, 47 families would be stranded on an island of expensive asphalt leading nowhere. For 15 years, I've been the good neighbor. Never asked questions, never charged fees, never enforced the easement conditions requiring good faith cooperation. But they changed the rules when they started treating my land like their personal landfill. Jerry's words echoed in my head from our earlier call. Wade, you're not just defending your rights anymore. You're holding all the cards in a game they didn't even know they were playing. The power dynamic had flipped completely. Every truckload they dumped was another violation of the easement terms. Every fine they issued was more evidence of bad faith. They were so focused on bullying me that they never stopped to consider whether I could push back, and push back hard. I called the municipal attorney's office the next morning. Tom Bradley handled property disputes for the city, and after 30 years in public works, we'd worked together on dozens of cases. Tom, I need you to look at something. Property owner versus HOA. Systematic trespass disguised as maintenance. 2 hours later, he called back. Wade, this is a slam dunk. Your easement agreement is ironclad. These people have been violating the terms for months, maybe years. You have grounds to revoke access immediately. What would that mean in real life? 47 landlocked homes. No mail delivery. No emergency services. No way in or out except walking across your yard. Property values would collapse overnight. That's when the full reality hit me. By treating me like some powerless retiree they could bully, they'd handed me control of their entire community. Every house, every driveway, every perfectly manicured lawn was worthless without my permission to reach it. But I'm not a vindictive man. Never have been. This wasn't about revenge. It was about respect, about making them understand that cooperation works both ways. I walked out to Sarah's ruined garden that evening, steel-toed boots crunching through salt-crusted snow. The chemical smell still lingered 3 months after the first dumping. Nothing would grow there for years. They forgot something important, sweetheart. I said into the darkness. Forgot that the quiet guy fixing everyone's problems for 30 years might actually know how things work. The plan forming in my mind was simple, legal, and devastating. Use their own snow to block their own streets. Turn their weapon into their prison. Make them understand property rights aren't suggestions. They're the foundation of everything they claim to protect. I spent the next week documenting every violation. Photos, timestamps, GPS coordinates. Building a case file any attorney would admire. But documentation was just preparation. The real work will begin with the next snowstorm, when I teach 47 families exactly what community cooperation looks like when it runs both directions. Grace found me planning in the garage that weekend, polishing Sarah's old garden tools while I mapped out equipment rental schedules. She'd be proud, wouldn't she? Dad? Grace had started calling me that after Sarah passed. Proud you're finally fighting back. Yeah, I said softly. Sarah would definitely be proud. Monday morning, I started making the kind of calls that turn neighborhood disputes into local legends. First stop, Hendrick's Equipment Rental. I need an excavator with a snow blade attachment for property maintenance. Nothing massive, but something that can move serious volume. The guy on the phone, Randy, according to his name tag when I drove over, walked me through options. How much snow are we talking about, Mr. Garrison? Let's just say my neighbors have been very generous with their winter donations. Randy laughed. One of those situations. You want the Cat 314. Hydraulic blade. Angles for maximum displacement. Push 20 tons like sandbox sand. Perfect. Next call went to Superior Fencing Supply. 12 steel posts rated for heavy-duty use, plus logging chains capable of supporting a pickup truck. Property line marking project. I explained. Need everything clearly defined. The hydraulic whine of equipment delivery filled my driveway Wednesday afternoon. Neighbors started paying attention when a flatbed dropped off an excavator that looked capable of reshaping mountains. Charlene's Tesla slowed to a crawl as she passed, her perfect blonde head turning for a better look. Let her wonder. Jerry Patterson stopped by Thursday evening to review the legal strategy. We spread everything across my kitchen table. Surveys, easement documents, violation notices, contamination reports. Wade, this is bulletproof, Jerry said. 15 years of goodwill access violated by illegal dumping and harassment. You have grounds for immediate revocation, plus damages. What about their argument that it's community maintenance? Doesn't matter. Community maintenance ends at property lines. Everything they've done on your land is criminal trespass. Jerry helped prepare formal notices, cease and desist letters, damage calculations, documentation with photos and timestamps. Then came the financial reality check. 3 storms of private snow removal, $2,400. Sarah's memorial garden destruction, $3,000. Soil remediation for chemical contamination, $8,000. Driveway damage repairs, for $1,000. Legal fees already climbing, $5,000. Total damages, $22,400. Nearly half my annual pension spent cleaning up their mess. But the most important preparation was lining up witnesses. Margaret Presley agreed to provide a written statement about the dumping pattern. Frank Rodriguez offered security footage showing targeted placement. Even Tom Henderson quietly admitted he'd never seen documentation for their so-called maintenance agreement. Friday afternoon, Lisa called from California. Dad, I've been thinking about what happened while we were there. This isn't right. They can't just bury your house and call it community service. Don't worry, sweetheart. Your old man's got a plan. What kind of plan? The kind your mother would have used. Firm but fair, with consequences that fit the crime. That weekend, I installed the security equipment. Cameras covering every angle of my property line. Portable floodlights to illuminate nighttime dumping. Everything time-stamped and backed up to cloud storage. Mike Torres came by Saturday to install the steel boundary posts. Each sunk 3 feet into concrete with survey flags marking the exact legal line. Wade, this is professional grade marking. Nobody can claim they didn't know where your property ends. Sunday evening, the forecast made everything perfect. Major blizzard system moving in from Canada. 18 to 24 inches expected Monday night into Tuesday. Biggest storm in 15 years. I called Grace into the living room. Grace, we're going to have visitors Tuesday morning. Lots of them. Probably not entirely friendly. What kind of visitors? The kind who are finally going to understand respect works both directions. She studied my face, seeing something she hadn't seen since before Sarah got sick. Determination. Purpose. What do you need me to do? Just stay warm and safe inside. Maybe make some coffee. We might have reporters coming. Reporters? Grace, tomorrow morning we're going to give this neighborhood a property rights lesson they'll never forget. That night, I checked the excavator hydraulics one final time. tested blade angles for maximum displacement, confirmed the steel posts were perfectly positioned. Everything ready for Tuesday morning's community education project. The metallic scent of hydraulic fluid mixed with crisp winter air as I sat on Sarah's memorial bench, staring at the place her roses used to bloom. Tomorrow, they'd finally get the respect they deserved. And 47 families would learn what community cooperation looks like when it runs both directions. Tuesday morning brought the storm right on schedule, and with it, Charlene's desperate attempt to regain control of a situation slipping rapidly from her hands. The certified letter arrived at 9 a.m., delivered by a nervous kid from downtown. Demand for immediate compliance stamped across the envelope in threatening red letters. Inside were 3 pages of legal-sounding language that basically said, remove your barriers within 48 hours or face $10,000 in fines plus attorney fees for blocking community access and endangering residents with illegal obstructions. Illegal obstructions. That's what she called properly marked property line improvements installed by a licensed surveyor on my own land. But here's where Charlene made her first critical mistake. The letter was signed by Anderson, Bailey & Associates, a legitimate downtown law firm I recognized from municipal contracts during my public works years. Curiosity made me call them directly. Anderson, Bailey & Associates, this is Michelle. Hi, Michelle, this is Wade Garrison. I received a letter from your firm regarding an HOA dispute. Could I speak with the attorney handling my case? Long pause. Could you spell your last name, sir? GRR's on Meadowview Estates HOA matter. Another pause. Typing sounds. Sir, I don't show any active files under that name. Could you read me the case number? I read it. More typing. Mr. Garrison, that's strange. That case number format doesn't match our system. Could you hold while I check with Mr. Anderson? 5 minutes later, a man's voice came on the line. Mr. Garrison, this is David Anderson. I understand you received a letter claiming to come from our firm. Yes, sir. Threatening legal action over property line markers on my own land. Sir, we don't handle HOA disputes, and we absolutely did not send you any threatening correspondence. Could you fax me a copy of what you received? It sounds like someone is using our letterhead without authorization. Bingo. Charlene had manufactured the entire thing. Jerry Patterson was practically laughing when I called him with the update. Wade, she just committed mail fraud using a fake attorney letterhead. That's a federal offense. And it gets even better. We can use this to establish a pattern of deception and harassment. Later that afternoon, the real attorney from Anderson, Bailey & Associates called me back. Mr. Garrison, we're filing a complaint with the state bar regarding unauthorized use of our letterhead. We'd also appreciate copies of any other documents your HOA has distributed claiming to be from law firms. Turns out this wasn't Charlene's first attempt at legal intimidation. 2 other neighbors had received similar fake threats over minor violations. The state bar was very interested in evidence of systematic fraud. But Charlene's day was just getting started. Around 4 p.m., an actual attorney arrived at my door. Older gentleman, nice wool coat, legitimate briefcase filled with real legal paperwork. Mr. Garrison, I'm Robert Presley, attorney for the Meadowview Estates HOA. I apologize for the intrusion, but I need to discuss the property access situation with you. I invited him inside for coffee. Professional courtesy. And honestly, I wanted to hear what real counsel had to say. Mr. Garrison, I'll be straightforward, he began. Mrs. Westbrook contacted our firm regarding property access barriers, but she failed to mention several complexities. What kind of complexities? Well, the systematic dumping of snow and chemicals on your property for starters, the fabricated legal threats, the violations of your easement agreement terms. Mrs. Westbrook presented this as a simple dispute, not a pattern of harassment and trespass. Robert Presley looked genuinely uncomfortable. Sir, my client has created significant liability exposure for the entire HOA. Your easement rights are clearly documented, and the violations are extensive. I'm recommending immediate settlement negotiations. What kind of settlement? Full compensation for property restoration, legal fees, and a binding agreement preventing any future dumping or harassment. My client also needs to understand that continued violations could result in complete access revocation. I appreciate his honesty. Mr. Presley, I'm not interested in punishing the entire community for one person's poor judgment, but I am interested in accountability and respect. I understand completely. Mrs. Westbrook has been difficult to advise. She appears to believe HOA authority supersedes property law. After he left, I called Jerry with the update. Their real attorney just threw Charlene under the bus, recommended settlement, and admitted liability. Wait, that's surrender, Jerry said. They know they can't win this legally. Question is whether Charlene accepts reality or doubles down on stupid. The answer came that evening. Emergency board meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. at Charlene's house. Agenda item: immediate removal of illegal barriers by any means necessary. Any means necessary. That sounded like a threat to me. Time to finalize preparations for tomorrow morning's community education project. Wednesday night brought the blizzard, and with it Charlene's last desperate attempt to prove who controlled Meadowview Estates. Snow started falling around dinner. Heavy flakes that meant serious accumulation. By 10 p.m., 8 inches covered the ground, and it was still coming down hard. Perfect conditions for what I knew was about to happen. Around 11:30, headlights swept across my living room window. 3 trucks lined up outside. The familiar orange and black of Premier Snow Removal, Charlene's contracted crew. But this time something was different. Charlene's white Tesla sat right behind them, hazard lights flashing in the storm. I grabbed my camera and coat. If she wanted to personally supervise, I was documenting every second. The lead driver stepped out. Guy I'd seen before, Miguel something. But instead of starting work, he walked straight over to where I stood at the property line. Mr. Garrison. Miguel Santos, crew chief. Listen, I need to tell you something before we start. What's that, Miguel? The lady in the Tesla offered my guys a $500 cash bonus tonight. Said dump extra loads. Really bury your property. Teach you a lesson about respecting the community. He looked uncomfortable. Sir, I've got kids to feed, but this doesn't feel right. She wants sand, salt, and construction debris mixed in with the snow. Target your garden area specifically. Construction debris. Chemical de-icers. Targeting Sarah's memorial garden. Miguel, you do what you need for your family, I said calmly. Just know I'm recording everything. None of this is your fault. He nodded and walked back. His honesty confirmed what I suspected. Charlene wasn't just harassing anymore. She was escalating into deliberate destruction. What happened next looked like a military operation planned by someone who'd never heard the word consequences. Charlene stepped out of her Tesla, wearing a white parka and designer snow boots, looking like she was directing an invasion. She pointed at different parts of my property, giving instructions for maximum impact. 3 trucks worked in coordinated cycles. Load after load of snow mixed with sand, salt, and chunks of concrete. The pile grew to 22 feet high, reaching my second-story windows. But what made my blood boil was Charlene posing for pictures, standing there in her perfect winter outfit, documenting the destruction like a trophy. I filmed everything. Her gestures, her directions targeting Sarah's garden. Clear evidence of intentional property damage. Around 2 a.m., they finished. The largest snow mountain I'd ever seen completely blocked our house from view. Grace couldn't see out any first-floor windows. We were effectively buried alive. After the trucks left, I walked the perimeter with my camera. The chemical smell was overwhelming. Industrial de-icers mixed with who knows what contaminants. But then I noticed something that made me smile in the darkness. Every single truckload had been dumped on my property. None on city streets. None on the easement route. Charlene had been so focused on burying me, she forgot the most important detail. All that snow was now mine. My land, my control. And tomorrow morning, I was giving it back. Every bit of it. Exactly where it would teach 47 families the meaning of cooperation. I spent the rest of the night checking equipment. Hard. Then go show them. At 6 a.m., I fired up the excavator and began the most satisfying property project of my life. Time to teach Charlene what community maintenance looked like when Wade Garrison was part of the community. The The sunrise broke through storm clouds as I made my first pass at that 22-foot mountain. 6 a.m. Thursday morning, and I was about to give 47 families the education of their lives. The excavator roared alive with that deep diesel rumble that means serious work. I'd operated heavy machinery for 30 years, but this morning felt different. Every movement had purpose. I started with a pile closest to Sarah's memorial garden. The toxic mound Charlene had ordered dumped on my wife's resting place. The blade cut deep, lifting tons of snow, sand, and chemicals with each pass. But I wasn't just moving snow. I was delivering it directly across my property line, to the exact start of the access easement, the only route 47 families had to reach the outside world. Every scoop built a wall across their private street entrance. By 6:30 a.m., a 6-foot barrier completely blocked Meadowview Estates. No entry, no exit. 47 families about to experience what trapped feels like. The first neighbor showed up around 7 a.m. Frank Rodriguez heading to his hospital shift. His truck stopped 20 yards from the wall, emergency lights flashing as realization hit. More cars lined up. Teachers, commuters, appointments, work obligations, normal Thursday lives, all blocked by the same snow their HOA dumped on me. By 7:15, about 30 people stood watching my perfectly legal property improvement project. Phones out, confusion spreading. Then the white Tesla arrived. Charlene slammed to a stop and stumbled through snow in her designer boots not meant for real winter. "What is this?" she screamed, pointing at my excavator like I was driving a tank. I shut off the engine and climbed down. "Morning, Charlene. Just doing property maintenance. Moving all that snow you generously donated. You can't block community access. This is illegal." "Ma'am, this is my property. Your snow is now properly placed along the boundary." The crowd kept growing. Then the fire department arrived. Sirens, 2 trucks, reports of blocked emergency access. Captain Rodriguez stepped out. "Who's in charge here?" Charlene rushed forward. "I am HOA president. This man blocked our community." The captain examined the barrier, then the steel survey posts. I could tell immediately. He understood. "Ma'am, this appears to be private property. Are you saying he doesn't have the right to use his land? He's blocking access." The captain turned to me. "Sir, is this your property line?" "Yes, sir. Surveyed last week." He nodded. "Ma'am, private property owners control access to private roads. If there's a dispute, resolve it with him or through court." That's when the Channel 8 news van arrived. Reporter Amanda Walsh jumped out with a camera crew. Perfect human interest story. "Sir, can you explain what's happening?" I looked at the crowd, at Charlene, at the cameras rolling. Time for the moment I've been waiting for. For months, my neighbors have dumped toxic snow on my property, targeted my late wife's memorial garden, and fined me for cleaning it up. This morning, I'm simply returning their property. Community cooperation works both directions. Silence fell over the crowd. Anyone who wants this snow removed can start by clearing the illegal dump from my memorial garden. Then we'll discuss respectful neighbor relations. Checkmate. 3 hours later, Charlene stood knee-deep in snow writing a personal check for $6,000 while cameras rolled and 47 angry neighbors watched. The emergency snow crew gave the HOA a choice: pay $18,000 for immediate access restoration or remain trapped until spring. The HOA emergency fund only had $12,000, leaving Charlene personally responsible for the difference. "This is extortion," she muttered. "No, ma'am," Captain Rodriguez corrected. "This is consequences." By noon, crews worked frantically clearing both my property and the street entrance. The story went viral. Retiree traps entire neighborhood with their own snow. But the best call came from the HOA board. Tom Henderson offered complete surrender. "Wade, we accept your settlement terms. Full damages, legal fees, binding agreement." Charlene was removed from all HOA positions. $22,400 property restoration. $8,000 legal fees. New easement agreement with strict terms. No dumping. No harassment. Annual good faith review. respect for Sarah's memorial garden. But money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was watching 47 families learn that cooperation requires cooperation, that property rights aren't suggestions, that the quiet guy fixing everyone's problems might actually understand how things work. 3 months later, Grace's therapy garden was thriving. Professional soil remediation cleaned the contamination, and settlement funds less expand into the space where snow piles once sat. She worked there every morning, arthritis improving, spirits higher, neighbors stopping by to admire her work. I used $10,000 from the settlement to start Sarah's Garden Fund, helping elderly residents maintain landscaping when physical or financial limitations made it difficult. The Property Rights Defense Network launched from our kitchen table, with monthly workshops teaching easement law, HOA limits, and documentation strategies. Margaret Presley became our first success story. Frank Rodriguez helped families fight illegal fines. Even Tom Henderson joined our advisory committee. But the sweetest victory was personal. Lisa started visiting monthly instead of yearly, bringing the grandkids to help in the garden, watching them plant seeds into soil that had once been contaminated and then brought back to life gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Proof that even the most damaged ground can recover if someone cares enough to fix it. Last week, a familiar white Tesla rolled slowly past our house again. Different driver, different plates. Charlene had finally left the neighborhood after losing her real estate license and becoming the subject of multiple fraud investigations. Turns out the state bar doesn't take kindly to fake legal threats, especially when seniors are involved. Her former home now had a large for sale sign planted squarely in the yard. Funny how karma sometimes comes with property listings attached. That evening, Grace found me sitting on Sarah's memorial bench, the sun dipping low behind rows of roses that were healthier than they'd ever been before. Flowers that had survived poison, neglect, and spite, and still chose to bloom. You think she'd be proud, Wade? Grace asked softly. I looked around the garden, then out toward a neighborhood that finally understood respect. No more entitlement. No more bullying. Just neighbors acting like neighbors. Yeah, Grace, I said. Sarah would absolutely be proud. Next week, we're heading over to help a veteran in Riverside who's battling his HOA over a service dog dispute. Bullies hate informed communities, but what they hate even more is organized neighbors who actually know their rights. Drop your worst HOA nightmare in the comments below. Let's help each other stand up and fight back. And make sure you hit subscribe plus that notification bell, because Justice Served Cold is always a story worth telling. Remember, community cooperation goes both ways. Sometimes people just need a reminder